Hi guys, Kane Harrison here. Welcome to another edition of PAI Medical, WeGrowHair.com Medical Minute. We are of course joined by Clinic Director Michael Ramsey. Welcome, mate.
Thank you, sir.
It's great to have you back here.
I love coming here.
Hey, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about you for a change instead of all the fantastic services you guys offer and your consultations and such. So we're going to point the spotlight squarely on you and your story. Let's work out, how did you get involved in this stuff?
So it's something I talk about sometimes, but 25 years ago, I started to lose my hair. And
Well, you would never think, by the way.
Well, thank you. And I didn't want to be bald. It just wasn't for me. And I understand for some people that's something that they're okay with, but I just wasn't wired that way. I was wired to, if there's a problem and you can fix it, and it bothers you, for all means, take care of it. So I started to thin, and I went in for a consultation there in Atlanta to find out what my options might be. And keep in mind, this was 25 years ago, so technology was quite different than it is today. We didn't have robotics, we didn't have these types of multi-unit grafting, lasers didn't exist. So
but also you were not in this field.
I wasn't in the field, I was in
Right.
a completely different field. I was in business for myself, but I had a medical background. So when I went in and met with them about my options, the options at the time were rugs, basically hair pieces, which I had no interest in that. Drugs, which I really wasn't excited about that option, and then hair restoration surgery. And as I understood it, basically what happened at that point is they took hair from the back, moved it to the front. The hair in the back's permanent, so when you moved it to the front, it was permanent. What I didn't understand at the time, though, was the technique and the technology. So I agreed to have the procedure done, and the procedure was done. And as the hair grew in, it didn't look quite natural. It looked tufty. It looked not like a cornfield, but it didn't look natural like a hairline would look. So I didn't like that fact. I liked the fact that I had more hair. I didn't like the fact that I had to hide my hairline. So oddly enough, about that time, the whole field of hair restoration surgery was shifting. And so what was coming about was a more natural type of procedure called micrografting. And with micrografting, what happened is instead of using large tufts of 10 to 20 hairs in a single graft, you would use 1 or 2 or 3, like your hair grows. Seems natural, seems obvious. So after the plugs grew in, I decided I wanted to fix what I had or soften what I had. So we went in, and our surgeons went in, and they took the micrografts and follicular unit grafts, and they filled in the areas, the spaces, the gaps where I had the plugs, and just blended in what I had with the new hair. And so today, the whole area that you have here, that I have here in the front, is completely transplanted from close to 25 years ago.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, we talked about this a little bit off camera. There are a few things personally that affect people so much that they're willing to change their lives completely. One of those things is weight loss, and you'll see a lot of people who go through extreme weight loss who end up being personal trainers because it's affected them so much. This is the same as you.
It's exactly the same.
I mean, you were so interested and so amazed by it that you just ended up in this field and now have your own clinic.
We all go through life looking for a passion, something that we can do, some kind of career path where we're passionate about. And, I was in a different career path, and I lost my hair, and suddenly I found a solution, and I had a passion for helping others navigate the waters of what's available, because unfortunately my first experience wasn't ideal, right? The hair grew, but it didn't look natural. So I've kind of become this advocate for helping men and women navigate the options that are best for them. And that's one of the reasons at our clinic we offer an array of options, not just one. So yeah, so I'm passionate about helping people with their hair loss. It gets me up in the morning, gets me up early, and it's, I'm lucky. I found something that I can do, I do well, and I'm very, very passionate about doing it.
Now tell me, I mean, firsthand you can say this open and honestly, tell me the difference between Michael Ramsey balding, thinning hair, to Michael Ramsey full head of hair.
So there's different in personality. So when I was losing my hair, what I found is I stopped doing things that I loved. So anything that involved getting my hair wet, my hair getting blown, because when you first start to lose your hair, the first thing you're trying to do is figure out a way to camouflage it.
Right.
So my style at the time was sort of moving the hair around to cover the front, and it looked well. I mean, you couldn't tell. And I went to a football game with a good buddy of mine from college, and I had my hair fixed just right? So the wind blew, and it kind of lifted up, and he saw the areas where I was thinning, and he sort of kind of bolted back in his chair and said a few things and said, "Dude, I didn't know you were balding."
Right.
And so that event was sort of the turning point of, hey, you know what, I got to figure out a solution because this styling thing is not working out, and it's going to get worse as I lose more hair. So I was more reserved. I was finding excuses not to go where my hair might get wet. I would never roll the window down in the car. Riding a convertible was not an option because
Right.
my people could see my secret. And a boat, anything where there was wind, or anything that was fun, really, I basically slowly stopped doing. And I realized I was essentially putting my life on a shelf a little bit at a time. I stopped scuba diving. I stopped going in sailboats. I stopped riding in a car with the windows open, no convertibles. So I felt like, well, this is no real way to live, so I need to get over it, or I need to do something about it. I tried to get over it. That's not how I'm wired. So the next step was doing something about it. And so that started my journey, my quest for the right solution for me, which has led to this career that I'm in now.
I mean, I know you were saying that you started to basically creep back from life. For a lot of men, the thing they do is put a hat on. I mean,
Exactly.
it's just they go from wearing a hat the whole time.
Yep.
So it's the same sort of thing, and having to get up and just think, I've got to put that cap on again and walk out the door.
It's true, and I'll tell you a quick story. I had a patient that came in for a consultation a number of years ago, and he came in with a hat on, nice-looking guy. The minute he took his hat off, you could see his whole personality sort of shrink down. And this, by the way, is common with men when they take their hat off. But this in particular was striking because he just really changed before my eyes. And so he was telling me the story about his grandmother who just passed. And he was her caretaker. He cut her grass. He got her groceries 2 or 3 times a week. He was there for her every day, 2 or 3 times a day to take care of her. When she passed, he did not go to her funeral because he could not wear a hat.
Wow.
So, and he was crushed, and he was just sort of falling apart in front of me because of this experience and how he had let his hair loss sort of take over his life. But that's the way he was wired. He was wired for it to bother him, much like I was. So it doesn't bother everyone, but it really, really bothered him. So absolutely, a hat is often a disguise for kind of dealing with or managing hair loss.
Now I see Michael driving around Nashville middle of winter with his head out the window down.
You will, sir.
That fantastic head of hair. Hey, now the other thing we can talk about, of course, is that you've got your story. It's an amazing difference for someone like that gentleman who come in and took his hat off. You could see his whole demeanor just fall. But you've been there. I guess that's the big difference. You share a commonality with your patients, where I imagine that there are a lot of people who aren't able to do that. That must be really amazing for the patients.
I hope so, because when I'm sitting across the table from them talking to them about their experience, I've lived that experience. I know what it's like to lose your hair and bother. I know what it's like to get your hair wet and people look at you funny like, oh, dude, I didn't know you were losing your hair. I know what it's like to have your friends make comments, and, it's not fun to live through that. And it's interesting, people make comments about hair loss, oh, dude, you're losing your hair, without really thinking about how it affects that person. You don't walk up to a person that's overweight and say, hey, you're fat, you need to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
That's rude. It's equally rude to talk to a guy about his hair loss if it bothers him. Hey, dude, you're bald, you need to do something about it. So it helps me help others get through that issue, and helps them find the right solution to help them get on with life, enjoy life, this short journey that we all have, and really take those things off the shelves, like I mentioned, like scuba diving, getting in a sailboat, riding in a convertible.
I think it's called living.
It's living, and one of the first things I did after I got my transplant is I went out and I got a convertible. I started scuba diving again. I sailed again, and I started enjoying my life instead of just slowly dissolving
You
it.
got that life back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know we call this Medical Minute, and I do know that we've been on for a little longer than a minute,
we
but it
have.
was well worth it, and we thank you guys for hanging in to hear Michael's story, because I think it translates to a lot of different things, and especially to you guys if you're thinking about coming in and seeing the team at PAI Medical, WeGrowHair.com. Michael, we love having you around. Thank you so much for coming in again today. And don't forget to check out WeGrowHair.com, and there's a bunch of different consultation options that you can get, and I'm sure you'll find one that suits you perfectly. But until we meet again, I'm Kane Harrison. This has been PAI Medical, WeGrowHair.com, Medical, a few more than 1 minute.